Are you convinced that your child's other parent just simply isn't following the government guidelines as far as keeping themselves and others safe during this coronavirus epidemic? Are you convinced that it's a bad idea for you to send your child, during their co-parenting time to this other irresponsible parent? Do you believe that you have a moral obligation to keep this child from their parent because you're afraid that they might cause this child to become infected? I know this is a common question because our phones are blowing up, going crazy with people asking us about it. My name is Patrick Slaughter. I'm a lawyer with LaFevor and Slaughter. And there's a lot of folks that, one, are scared because of the situation we're in, and that's understandable. And two, they're mad because they don't believe people are behaving as they should, given the situation we find ourselves in. Well, the answer to the question about whether you should or should not turn your child over to another parent that you don't believe is acting appropriately during this coronavirus epidemic is probably going to surprise you. Now, before I answer that, I think it depends a little bit on your situation. If you live within 15 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe even an hour of each other in the same state, the other child's parent isn't involved in an occupation that by definition will expose the child to the virus. But if you just believe this person is just irresponsible, not doing what they should, I don't believe that's a basis to be able to not to deny them the co-parenting time that's provided to them in a parenting plan. I don't. I'll tell you the same thing that I tell a lot of my clients, and a lot of them don't like to hear it, but I always tell folks, I want to tell you the truth, whether you want to hear it or not. The bottom line is the law doesn't punish prospectively. The law is not going to punish them for something that might happen. It's just not. Because if nothing happens, then they would have been deprived of a fundamental constitutionally protected right to parent their child based on a presumption or an assumption. You would be mad as the dickens if they did the same to you. I believe that if you willfully withhold a child just because you were afraid that they may be more likely to be exposed to a virus at their other parent's home, will probably not be enough to save you from a contempt action if something's filed with the court. I've mentioned it before, but a contempt action is just where one party goes into court saying that, hey, there was a court order in place and the other party knew about that order, had the ability to comply with that order, but just didn't do what the order said. And I think if you just intentionally deny the child to this other parent because of your fears, a judge is likely to find you to be in contempt. Now, I don't know that that means the judge is going to put you into jail. I don't know that means the judge is going to fine you. I don't know what would happen. I do believe the judge is going to make sure that the other parent is able to make up the time they missed. And depending on a few other things in your situation, could result in some other things happening that you probably wouldn't care to have happen. But I think you really need to think twice. Now, there might be some exceptions. If your other parent is a emergency room doctor who's on the front lines of dealing with this epidemic, yeah, maybe then, because I bet, the child would be pretty likely, and there's what we would call a substantial risk of harm that the child would be exposed. But you know what? I bet if the other parent is an emergency room doctor, they're probably going to want you to keep that child anyway. Maybe if the other parent, works in a hospital, in a ward where there's a lot of folks who have the coronavirus, again, maybe that's a circumstance. But by and large, these circumstances are going to be very limited. And before you ever decide to intentionally, go against any kind of court order, before you intentionally decide not to obey a parenting plan or any other order from a court, I would urge you to seek legal counsel. Whether it's from me or anybody else, call a competent attorney, describe your circumstances, and get an idea of what they think may be an option to you. I think that attorneys were in front of these judges on a regular basis. We deal with a lot of cases that are similar, although I will tell you, we're all shooting from the hip right now. This is not something we've had to deal with before. But we know these judges because we're in front of them day in, day out. We know how they're likely to respond. I'll be honest, I'm happy if you find yourself in a situation and you don't know exactly what to do. If you want to call me and go over the facts of your situation, have me give you my honest opinion about what you should or shouldn't do, or maybe some other solutions you might not have thought about, I'd be happy to do that. Just schedule a call. If it does involve legal action, of course, I can talk to you about that, but it may be that your case is in front of a judge that I'm not familiar with or another part of Tennessee that I don't go to. If that's the case, I am happy to point you in the right direction. Just don't try to go it alone. But I want you to hang in there. Always put your child first. Be reasonable, but don't succumb to fear. We're going to get through this on the other side, and we're all going to be okay. And then this will be a bad memory. But until then, keep your head up, put the child first, and we're going to get through it.